Many of us have our entire lives on our phones, including intensely personal information like health records and bank account records, which is why many of you are going to find the story we're about to tell you about so alarming. The government, under the law, is able to inspect your phone or your computer without a warrant when you enter or leave the United States. And NBC News has learned searches of cell phones by border agents of American citizens has increased dramatically. American citizens with valid passports, not suspected of any crime, not on any government watch list, stopped and told, turn over your cell phone and your password.
That, to me, just felt like a gross violation of our rights.
It happened to Buffalo couple Akram Shibley and Kelly McCormick, both born in the United States. Border Patrol agents held them for 2 hours at the Canadian border in early January. They turned over their phones. But 3 days later, they were stopped again after driving back from Toronto, just 20 minutes from their home. This time, Akram refused to turn over his phone.
One officer grabs me from behind, grabs me by the throat. Another officer comes in front of me, grabs me by the legs. Third officer reaches into my pockets and pulls out my cell phone. And then they ask Kelly to give her cell phone up, and she's scared stiff.
I just handed it right over. I was not about to get tackled.
NBC News has spoken with 25 American citizens stopped at the border, 8 since Donald Trump became president, all ordered to turn over their phones and passwords or unlock them. Many threatened with arrest if they didn't comply. All but 2 of these individuals are American Muslims. The stops at the border raising concern about citizens' rights under the Fourth Amendment, which protects against unreasonable searches and seizures.
The Fourth Amendment, even for U.S. citizens, doesn't apply at the border. Under case law, that goes back 150 years.
Data from the Department of Homeland Security shows electronic searches began late in the Bush administration, but were very limited. Then, in the last year of the Obama administration, the number of cell phone searches increased nearly 5-fold, from roughly 5,000 in 2015 to just under 24,000 in 2016. And 2017 is gearing up to be a blockbuster year. According to data obtained by NBC News, more people were stopped by border agents in order to turn over their phones in February than in all of 2015. The recent surge, 2 intelligence officials tell NBC News, driven by frustration that law enforcement failed to detect a string of domestic terrorism attacks. And even if your phone is locked by a passcode, authorities can now make a clone of what's on most devices, allowing law enforcement agencies to collect information in a way that, if it happened anywhere else, would violate the right against unreasonable searches and seizures.
I have extraordinary respect for our Border Patrol. With that said, this loophole that you talked about really disappoints me, and it seems to have gotten worse since January 20th.
We are letting into our country people we don't know who they are.
The ACLU and others believe intensified rhetoric from President Trump has emboldened some federal agents to take matters into their own hands.
The shackles are off. We see individual officers and perhaps supervisors as well pushing those limits, exceeding their authority, and violating people's rights.
Democratic Senator Ron Wyden thinks the problem is so serious he's introducing legislation requiring search warrants if the government wants to search the phones of Americans at the border.
What is going on at the borders has the potential to be a real digital dragnet. I think that this really puts at risk both the security and the liberty of the American people.
The Inspector General of the Department of Homeland Security is investigating the case of our Buffalo couple. Meanwhile, DHS points out electronic searches affect less than 1% of travelers, and they say the increased searches are in response to new threats.
Like, a lot of people are going to be surprised that this is perfectly legal at the moment. And what do you do? Let's say it happened to you.
Yeah, well, the first thing to do is stay calm, which I think for a lot of us would be difficult. But stay calm. Do not be aggressive. Ask immediately for a supervisor, because sometimes supervisors can downgrade the situation. You do not have to turn over your password, though here's what happens. You just get to sit there for a long time while they take it in the back and make a clone of it. So regardless of whether you give your password, they do get access to the data. They then can keep that data without any suspicion for 5 days and probe through the phone. What happens ultimately
is still a bit of a mystery, even having talked to numerous previous and current officials.
You mean what happens to that data?
That's right. They have to send the phone back eventually, but it may be a while.
Very interesting. Something tells me we're going to hear more about this. Cynthia, thank you very much.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.